All right, let me hit the OK button and good. All right. Good morning. This morning I have with me Brittany Maday from Research and Project Management LLC. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Maday. I have been working in research administration and research development for almost 15 years in higher education and about 3 years outside of higher education. So very excited to be part of the Savvik group and getting to work with members regularly now that we've entered this space.
Awesome, and we're happy to have you. So let's start with the first question because not all of our members know who RPM is. Oh, we love dogs. That's okay. Uh, who is RPM? How did you guys get started, and what do you do?
Sure. So my business partner, Lizzie, and I actually, we met in an undergraduate research lab at the University of Delaware. And our postdoctoral mentors were absolutely incredible, and we learned so much from them. But we got to see the ins and outs of the real struggles of starting out fresh out of getting a PhD and trying to figure out where do you fit in the space? How do you find a grant? And then once you get funding, what in the world do you do with it? How do you spend it properly? What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? What do you do with the receipts? And it looked terrifying, but also we were infatuated by it. And we always joked that we should start a business one day and we should help people figure out those types of things. And 10 years later, that's exactly what we did. It was a really exciting opportunity. And one of our first clients was a researcher at Delaware State University who was working with Savvik to study diversity and inclusion in the workforce. And it was just an amazing opportunity because we were doing some project management for that project, and we got to see kind of firsthand how everything was going. We got invited down to the EMS World Expo to help collect data, and we're able to introduce ourselves to Mickey and some of the other folks with Savvik, and in turn found that this really could be a much bigger partnership. There was a whole world of people out there that aren't being serviced by grants. And so, to be totally honest, over the last 2 years, we've completely changed our model, and we're no longer focusing primarily on higher education at all. Fire, EMS, police is our primary focus now, and we really are just excited to be in this world and learning every day a little bit more about ways that we can help, and turning and learning to refine our skills to work in this space, and then being able to help folks do the same things, employ the same skills, but just on a different level.
And that's awesome. I know so many of our members appreciate the help, but let's talk about specifically Savvik members. What does RPM do for Savvik members? Like, what functionally do you do when it comes to like the process? If I were to explain you to somebody who doesn't know anything about grants, what's your role?
Yeah, definitely. So basically what we do is we offer completely free, no obligation consultation to Savvik members. And that's kind of a new thing for us, but we found it helps people to understand where we can offer services really. So we learn a little bit about the company, a little bit about what the needs are, and we can give some examples of the types of grants that are out there, or something similar that we've found funding for, that we've been able to apply for, or something that maybe I just happened to see in a search last week that I think would be a great fit, and I'd be excited to help them learn how to apply and get things ready, and try to get some funding to support different projects. And so that's a really exciting piece of things where we're able to get started. But from there, the ways we kind of help Savvik members and work with Savvik members are more about our more formal consultation. And so in that consultation, we really take the time. We offer discounted fees to all Savvik members, and we take the time to go through your budgets and to figure out, are there things in your budget that you're currently paying for that we think we could supplement with grant funding? Because freeing up your annual budget is kind of our first and primary goal for those who are really just trying to figure out, hey, I want a grant writer, but I can't even afford to pay for one. Even if money is some nominal fee, I don't have it in my budget. And so we just start from scratch. Okay, fine. We can find something that's already in your budget, free up that money, and then you can figure out A, how to repurpose it at your agency, but B, how to use some of those funds to get more funds. Um, and so we're kind of investing in ourselves and investing in agencies through Savvik members. And from there, we're talking about community grants, foundation grants, things that support, buying AEDs and putting them in a local store and then training local community members in how to use them. Or we're talking about buying funding to get new bulletproof vests for everyone, or to have enough bulletproof vests in enough sizes to support a new incoming group of students that are coming through, or people who are going to be doing ride-alongs, or whatever that need is. I'm finding more and more that there are needs that folks don't even realize they can be asking for more for. So when I'm coming to the table and saying, hey, I know this amazing grant that will cover training or equipment or whatever up to X number of dollars, whether that's $5,000 or $50,000, people are just floored that those opportunities are out there and they hadn't already heard about them. And so it's really exciting to get to be part of that. And all of those fees and services that we offer Savvik members are discounted because you're Savvik members. So it helps to know that anything that we do that comes with any type of fee is going to be discounted just because you're a Savvik member. And so whether that's that free initial consultation, a discounted consultation, when we do that deeper dive, grant writing, grant management, just about anything. And also, as part of our partnership with Savvik, we offer completely free grant writing services for grants up to $10,000. So I think that's a really exciting thing to get to do, especially for those agencies who really feel like they need to free up a little bit of money and kind of figure out where to go next after that.
For sure. And I love the partnership for Savvik members, because a lot of the members that we have that need funding are people who just kind of don't understand grants are written to be complicated. So like there's a lot of need in the industry, but what specifically do you think, what items, what purchases, what types of grants do you think are out there that are the most abundant for our particular member base? Like what would you say for the industry is kind of the most common items or purchases that you could get a grant for, just for examples?
Yeah, so honestly, that right now there is a huge push from foundations, from local governments, from federal governments. Everyone is pushing for community engagement, community involved events. So anything that we can do, even if the need isn't directly community related, kind of like I was saying, buying AEDs to put in local stores downtown. It's not necessarily something where we're like, oh yay, all the community's coming to sit together at a table, or we're having some, appetizers and drinks out on the street. But it is something where it could save people's lives. And proper training also is really important, and something that there's not always time for, there's not always money for. It's always something that's in the list of to-dos but doesn't get done. And it's something that is honestly pretty easy to get funding for. So anything like that, buying something that will service the community, offering trainings that will service the community. Those are really big initiatives right now. On the larger scale, there's starting to be a lot more diversity and equity and inclusion in the workplace grants that are coming out. So there's lots of things that I've seen posted recently that are saying, keep an eye out for this, looking for this. Next year's budget is going to include X, Y, or Z. And a lot of people got frustrated this year. So there were some really great HRSA grants that looked like they were going to come out for emergency services. They were supposed to come out early May. I was really excited about them. Lots of clients were really excited, and a lot of funding got cut and those grants just disappeared. And so another part of my job is just to say, like, yes, it happens. Yes, it's very frustrating to think, oh, this is going to be perfect. I'm going to get $500,000 for X. And you can get lost in, oh, I lost that opportunity, or I lost that. But the reality is, if you turn it around, I mean, the opportunity was amazing to begin with, but someone out there thought it was a good idea. Someone put it in a budget, and it was important, and budget cuts had to be made, and that item fell off the list. Just like other things fall off of our priority list all the time in our everyday work. And so then it's my job to say, okay, how important is that task for you, or that, new equipment, or that new initiative, or that training? Scholarships are huge right now. So getting new members into the community, something I've written probably our last 5 grants about, is scholarshiping folks through EMT school or through paramedic school. And again, those were with prioritization given to minorities or women in the community. And it was a lot of the Look Like Me initiative. So they want the folks in different agencies to be representative of their local communities. And so in that sense, it's also very realistic. If your community is not high minority, no, they're not going to say you have to give all those scholarships. It's not unrealistic. They really are understanding in what they're asking, but you have to know what to look for in the grant to know that you definitely qualify. Because if you're looking at a diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you live in an area where that's not highly prevalent in your local community, a lot of agencies would think, oh, I'm not qualified then. But that's really not the case. All you have to do is back it up with data, and numbers and data are scary for some people, and not knowing how to, or where to look, and how to make that part of a successful application is one of the most exciting parts of our job, is getting to tell a story that includes both everyday life, the realities, the needs, the wants, but also bringing in the nerd stuff, and getting in some data and some stats and some budgets, and tying it all together to make a more successful application.
Absolutely. And I know I know that looking at grants like that is so intimidating for so many different agencies. And there's so many different pieces to the puzzle that it's the nerd stuff. Honestly, it's the stuff that they know how to save lives. This is like, not every ambulance organization, not every EMS agency, not every fire department or police department has a Brittany on staff to say, hey, I can do the nerd stuff. And that's what makes RPM so vital to Savvik members. But if there's kind of a golden piece of advice that you have, if there's just kind of something that you'd want to impart out to people in their organizations that are looking for funding, what do you have to say to them? Like, what advice do you have for them, other than the obvious, we can do the nerd stuff, because your professionalism speaks for itself for sure. But like, what advice do you have for the agencies that are looking for funding that maybe just don't quite know where to start?
Start small. Start with Walmart. Start with Aldi. Start with your local grocery stores. Honestly, probably 70% of the time, if you Google a local grocery store or organization like Walmart or Sam's Club or something like that, and the word grant, there's an opportunity out there. It might not be open right now, but it exists. And so then you just have to figure out if you qualify. Again, most of them do want to see a nonprofit organization be the one applying, but it's not always the requirement. Sometimes there are loopholes, and also there are lots of opportunities for partnerships. So I think a lot of people think, if I'm getting a grant, I need to be the one to get the money, but you're just as likely to be able to formally in federal grants, it's called a subaward or a contract or a subrecipient. There's lots of different terminology. But in these smaller foundation grants, they're just called partners. You just need a partner. So if you're a for-profit ambulance company, but there's a local fire department, and you guys can partner so that you can, mix your community serving abilities, you can both apply, or the primary agency that would apply would be the one that would qualify. So the nonprofit organization, but that agency can apply, and then you can figure out behind the scenes how to share the money, and that's part of your application. Like, hey, I'm company X, I'm going to work with company Y, here's what we want the money for, and here's what it's going to do. And that's the same, if not a more powerful application than you trying to apply for something yourself that may or may not qualify you for that money. So don't be afraid to look, don't be afraid to push a little bit of boundaries. And my other biggest suggestion is, if there's ever a program officer or a contact name and you have a question, don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions. People want to give money to people who are going to use it well. So they want you to know that you're asking the right questions, that you intend to spend their money wisely, and that you're doing what you say you're going to do, what they want you to be doing. It all kind of works hand in hand. And so if you take the time to reach out, say who you are, say what you're looking for, I think some people think that there's judgment with that, or that someone might think that you just don't know enough, or that it might somehow hurt you. But in the grant writing world, it's actually completely the opposite.
Love to hear it. I love to hear that there's just so many funding opportunities out there, especially coming from a smaller department where it was, we can't get the funding that we need. We really feel like the future is funding. And as far as kind of the future of funding and kind of the partnership with RPM that we have, and kind of the advantages that Savvik members have with RPM, where do you see grants kind of going in the future? And what message do you have for Savvik members that are worried about future funding?
That's a really great question. So futuristic, I would say it's about half of what we should depend on are grants that have been out there every single year. So repetition, the AFG grant that's going to come out in January, or somewhere within that realm, usually they're within a couple of weeks every year. They're pretty close to the same. You can start planning ahead of time. It's a lot easier. If you find that grant close to when it's closing, it's a lot easier, if your budget can support it, to just kind of say, okay, I'm going to wait. I'm going to take this description and prepare for it for next year, so that as soon as that application opens, all I have to do is see what's different between last year's requirements and this year's, tidy up a few things, and then I'm ready to submit, as opposed to scrambling and maybe missing the mark somewhere, because in big grants like that, the points mechanisms are huge. And so, missing something like not having the proper font size or font style can completely disqualify you from a grant submission. And so I would say half of it is just really getting to know the grant, trusting the process, and preparing ahead of time. And half of it is figuring out what's in the funding pipelines. What are the higher up initiatives that are going to be coming down, and how can that apply to your organization? So kind of thinking outside of the box. Just because something's diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't mean you still can't have that same exact training scholarship model that you wanted, that I kind of spoke to earlier. You could still go for the same exact grant style, where you're saying, I need to be able to fund our EMTs through paramedic school, and give them some time, give them some travel money, give them whatever they need, their scholarshiping, a stipend, to be able to cover their needs, to get them to come back to work for me, can still be applicable in one of those other grants. But then the only difference is you have to prioritize women or minorities, or things in the community like that completely changes or opens doors for you that are far beyond what I might be able to find for you solely for scholarshiping a paramedic program. And so it's really just about how to work with the system, with the priorities that are out there, and kind of reshifting maybe your original goal or idea, knowing that it's still useful and purposeful, and we can make it work, but we need to be flexible about it.
Absolutely. I love hearing conversations like this too, because it's so nice to hear that funding is out there. Like, funding is out there. There are tricks to it. There's ways that you can increase your odds, your chances. It can get complicated. It can get all over the place, but that's why we have Theo. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we kind of wrap up here?
I just want to say that I feel like we've been so fortunate to work with Savvik members. We're learning just as much as we're giving back. And I appreciate everyone who sits down with us and talks to us about needs. And I appreciate the first couple of folks who had to explain to me what the difference was between all these different life-saving devices, because I don't know how to write the fact that you need these high dollar pieces of equipment. But, 2 years later, we have turned that into something that is much more powerful, and that we are able to serve Savvik members better because of the first Savvik members that trusted us. And so just know that we're continuing to learn and grow, and we promise to keep doing better and getting better at our job as we grow and help you get better at yours.
Well, thank you so much, Brittany. Thank you so much for RPM's work with Savvik members, we've seen some of our members getting those grants. It's been an incredible process working with you. And we will have links in the description to reach out to RPM to get that free consultation, to ask questions about grants. Please ask questions. Brittany is a powerhouse of information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.